There we go. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to AWE Nite SF. We're going to get started here in just a moment. I'm going to let a few last people trickle in, and then we're going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. And all right, let's get going. All right, welcome to another AWE Nite SF, the very first one of 2023, where we'll be sitting down with Tom Emrich and Amy LaMeyer to dive deep into Tom's annual trends and predictions for all things immersive. I'm Patrick Johnson, co-organizer of AWE Nite SF and CEO of Rock Paper Reality. And I am particularly excited for tonight's show. Tom is who originally brought me into the AWE Nite organization, so it's going to be fantastic to have him back. And so we're really looking forward to having him here tonight. And I just realized I'm sharing the wrong presentation. So let me go ahead and bring up the correct one. Just one moment here. Beginning of the year technical challenges. Bear with me. All right, just 1 second. All right, Goopy, I might need just a quick bit of help here to get back to the presenter mode. I think I actually might have found it. All right, here we go. Let's try it again. Cool, we're here. All right, round two. Let's do this. Perfect. So before we get started, I'd like to welcome everyone to use the chat function during the show. Introduce yourself. Where are you from? Obviously, this is a San Francisco meetup group, but since going virtual, we have had people joining from all over the world. I, in fact, am in Scotland right now and go back and forth between San Francisco. So welcome everybody near and far. Also, while the conversation is happening, share what you're liking about it, and make sure you put in any questions, because there will be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. For those who don't know, AWE Nite SF is part of the Greater Augmented World Expo family, the world's #1 spatial computing series, and it supports 32 independently run AWE Nites around the world now. I think when I was getting started, it was San Francisco and pretty much New York, and now you can see the little red dots are popping up everywhere. So if you are joining us from somewhere in another city, check out the other ones, get involved, and be part of the community. AWE Live is a great resource for these events. There's plenty of shows there. There's also a lot of past videos, so just be sure to peruse AWE Live, and also it's great for networking. So meet folks while you're here. It's all about the community. So there's some shows coming up, and we're very excited for, I mean, really all of them. I'm definitely going to be at AWE USA. That's on May 31st through June 2nd in Santa Clara, as always. Looking forward to seeing you all there soon, and it's already coming up fast. This year, I think it's going to be our first year in Singapore on August 30th and 31st. AWE EU is going to be in Vienna this year. And then you can always catch all the other events that are kind of happening on AWE Live. And then just before you get started, maybe just to give the chat a try, for how many of you is this your first AWE Live event? I'd like to just welcome you all to it. If it's your first one, it's your first AWE Nite SF, please don't be a stranger, come back around. Look, you can always check in at some of our past shows as well. If you are planning to attend any of the AWE events, you can use 23 AWE Nite SD for a 20% discount. even though that's not SF, the SD will still get you there to AWE USA 2023. For those who didn't have a chance to attend 2022 AWE EU, the event recording is now live. If you want to go back and watch some of the shows or catch the ones you missed, you can go check it out on YouTube or AWE Live now. And there's also some great events that are coming up on AW Live, so keep your eyes peeled for those. We also have a few AWE academies, the fundraising prep course for XR startups, and then a course that I actually teach, Web AR Workshop. That one is now in the repository. You can get it now. It's a 2-day course. In fact, Tom is a speaker during that course and that workshop, so I totally recommend checking that one out as well. And finally, please post about the show. Hashtag AWE Nite SF, Twitter, LinkedIn. I think we had quite a few new members from the last couple weeks. We're about 10 people away from hitting that 5,000 marker that I've been talking about for about a year. I don't think my life will be complete until we do hit it, so please help me complete my life journey. And I think that is it. That is my end of my spiel. And now I would like to welcome Tom and Amy to the virtual stage and take it away.
Amazing. Thanks for having us, Patrick, and can't wait to see 5,000 too. 10 people away. Tell your friends. Just 10 people need to tell one person to join. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Yeah, and Patrick, thanks. Congratulations for all the growth. Did you see? I loved seeing all those dots across the map. Mm-hmm. It's good to see AWE continuing and the community continuing to grow worldwide.
100%. Maybe let's introduce ourselves, Amy, and then we can get started in talking about the industry, the hardware, the platforms and tools, and more. I'll kick things off by just saying hi. If I haven't met you, my name is Tom Emrich. I am the Director of Product Management for the 8th Wall platform at Niantic. 8th Wall is the web-based augmented reality platform for Niantic. Niantic best known for publishing Pokemon Go, as well as our Lightship platform. I've been in the augmented reality space for over a decade now. And every year, as Patrick mentioned, I take some time to jot down some trends. It's now been 10 years that I've been sitting down and trying to eye and in detail the trends that I think are going to dominate the space. Before I hand it off to Amy, I just want to say the trends that we'll be talking about, in particular, the trends that I wrote, those are my individual opinion, and so they don't represent any of the companies that I have been attached with in the past, present, or future. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I'm excited to sit down with my good friend and longtime colleague in the space, Amy LaMeyer. Amy, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, it's nice to be here again. This is the third time that we are having this conversation about your trends, although I've been reading them for nearly a decade. And I'm always excited to dig in. I like the way you lay it out. It's very clear for anybody that hasn't seen it. I highly recommend going and reading that complete view after our conversation. I am one of the 2 managing partners of WXR Fund. So we invest in VR, AR, and AI early stage startups that have at least one female founder. There are 14 companies in our portfolio, and that's across all different industries: education, healthcare, enterprise, media and entertainment, architecture, and probably more. So yeah, based here in San Francisco area, and delighted to be back.
Awesome. Well, let's start by talking a little bit high level and discuss what are some of the major industry trends before getting into some of the details that we expect to propagate and dominate the headlines and conversations this year. And I think what would be appropriate is to talk about metaverse. It's on everyone's mind. It's the #1 buzzword within our industry and other industries. Taking a look at the journey that metaverse has been on, what where are your thoughts at heading into 2023? And what are your opinions on metaverse and where it's headed?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a shocking month for year, I guess we can say, for metaverse, with the news on alt space VR in particular. But also some hope, right? We just saw the announcement of a virtual space being created by Samsung, Google, Qualcomm. That announcement coming out this week. So certainly time for a change, and we're also seeing a lot of growth. The announcement from Warner Music Group working with Roblox and expanding what they're doing in the Roblox space. Whether or not that's considered a metaverse, it's hard to say, right? Still, probably pre-metaverse more than a metaverse itself, if we're being technical. But even though I think there's bad news with some virtual worlds closing down, I think there's still a lot of hope. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be another year of a lot of activity within metaverse. I love that, when we're trying to describe it, there's a little bit of this like uncomfortableness on like what exactly is the definition of the metaverse. And I think that will also be a continued thread. The metaverse, I've written about this in this year's and last year's trend post, is still something that is defined differently by different people whenever I talk to someone. And for me, I think what I've come to terms with is it's more of a realization rather than one thing. So it's not a virtual world or a NFT collection or a specific technology, but rather a realization that there is this new stack that's being constructed of this next wave of computing, and it's primarily being made up of emerging technologies, many of which you are investing in: AI, AR, VR, blockchain,
Web3,
Web3, the cloud, and advancements in the cloud. Like it's a mixture of things, of which they're all maturing to certain levels in which individually they're expressing value and they're unlocking opportunity. And then I think this realization came about by both the maturity level of these emerging technologies, but also the pandemic being this huge catalyst, which really shook up this experiment that we're in, and really allowed for us to see where we're at with our current wave of computing, what the limitations are, where is this new stack at, and what are the promises that it is affording. And it got us really excited. So I think we all see the vision now, and that vision, is the metaverse. But for me, the metaverse is more of a mirage than a miracle, in that the closer we get to it, the more we really realize how much work there is to do before we finally arrive, if that's even something that we will do. But in the meantime, we'll see these emerging technologies, these underlying technologies, realize success. And one of these underlying technologies, artificial intelligence, or AI, in particular, more generative AI, I think is already primed to knock the crown off the metaverse as the technology of choice at the peak of the hype cycle. And it's really consuming all the innovation air in the conversation, if you were. And so I think this year, while there will be a lot of metaverse activity, and certainly we'll continue to see brands invest in the metaverse and companies position themselves as metaversal companies, it'll be the year of artificial intelligence, and also be a year that we start to move beyond the vision of the metaverse back to focusing on the underlying technologies themselves.
Yeah, and I think that the interesting point about that shift, the year of AI versus necessarily the metaverse, is that there's so much about AI-based technology that could ultimately help build the metaverse. So I think as we lean into the advancements in AI, whether it be avatar creation or even music creation with AI, right? To have music and sound in our metaverses, all of these things ultimately will eventually intersect, and and help the metaverse to grow. But I agree with you. AI is certainly a hot topic these days, and seeing a lot of growth in that space.
Yeah, for sure. But I love what you're saying about how AI is enabling AR, VR content creation. Certainly, generative AI, it really can help unblock the creation of AR, VR, knowing that 3D content can be a roadblock to the creation of AR, VR content. And this is where it's really not an like one technology versus another. And that's why the vision of the metaverse is important. The vision of the metaverse is these technologies working together in concert to enable this next wave of computing, where the AR camp and the VR camp and the AI camp and the blockchain camp, who all believe that they're building the future, realize that they're building a piece of the future, and that we need to start to grab each other's hands and find bridges in which really will rapidly allow for us to reach the metaverse. So, I fully expect this year to be filled with article headlines that say that, AI is the future, not AR, or AI is the future, not VR, or AI is the future, not the metaverse. But those are
not one or the other.
It's not one or the other. AI is part of the metaverse. AI is part of AR and VR. And so I think this vision of the metaverse is really important. But I mean, we are already seeing that every single conversation, including ours today, is being dominated by artificial intelligence. And so 100%, lots of talk about AI.
Yeah. I'd love to jump to a later piece in your article. And again, you do a really great job of laying out trends that you're watching by industry and hardware, infrastructure, consumer, enterprise. But the very last section of the post that you wrote is on ethics and human impact. And I'm so glad that you included that, because I think it is an important trend for all of us, and particularly with what we were just talking about, because I think it should be and hopefully it will be a trend across all of those different technologies, right? So what is your thought on and what are you seeing in terms of privacy and security and in our space?
Yeah, well, I think we've seen a lot of discourse and a lot of working groups and organizations pop up that are really dedicated to making sure that we're thinking about the safety, security, and privacy of users. The XRSI group, the XRA group, and others are all really dedicated to making sure there's a lot of awareness and conversation. I think that this is really important, and certainly all technology companies, whether they're creating hardware or software, tools need to be keeping these top of mind, especially because these technologies, especially talking about augmented reality and virtual reality, on the augmented reality side of things, these devices are essentially enabling computers to have senses of the world, and then by giving computers their own senses, then they can edit our sense of the world, and primarily that sense is sight at this time, but it will move to other senses, and so this perceptual computing that we are on enabling for consumers and for enterprise, we need to take extremely seriously about making sure that in using these new technologies and engaging in content within augmented reality and virtual reality experiences, that those users are safe, that they're secure, and that there is a privacy by design approach. What I will say is that right now it seems like there's a lot of awareness, and I think that especially as more devices, head-borne devices especially, become available to the mainstream, there will be a lot of work that will need to be done on the regulatory side, the standard side, but also just a lot of work on the social contract side of things as well, which is really not something that necessarily one group can pick up, but that happens like over time. And so I think just being aware that when we think about the adoption of these technologies, it's not just tackling the hardware problem and making sure that there's the right content, but that there's these societal implications that need to be addressed in order for that tipping point to be reached within our industry, and then of course within the industries that make up the metaverse as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly with that AI component, right? I think I'm hoping that it'll just highlight the need for awareness and thought to think through what are these potentially massively impacting technologies doing with, how are they interacting with society? How could they impact society? And what are the ways that we should roll this out with thought, instead of just getting the quickest, launching as much as we can, as quickly as we can. Yeah. I hope that's a new trend.
100%. And I think that there's a lot of learnings in the previous wave that we can.
Oh, Tom, you froze for me. I'm not sure if that's the case for everybody.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. You're back. I'm slightly having a hard time with your audio. Did you just ask a question and can you hear me?
What? Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, so no one heard anything. That's okay. But you saw me moving and I was very animated. I'll just recap quick and then we can move on to maybe talking about some of the hardware trends, because I think that's really exciting.
Oh, always exciting.
What I was saying is, we're not starting from scratch when it comes to privacy, safety, security. We have a lot of learnings that we can glean from this current wave of computing. And so I think it's smart for us to take pause and ask ourselves, what's working, what's not working, what are some of the challenges that we haven't addressed that maybe we should before we move into this next wave of computing. And then, of course, we got to ask ourselves what's net new, because this is brand new territory. And of course, bringing people into it, the next dimension of computing will surface up some new things that we're going to have to, address.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So hardware, everybody's always waiting for the glasses moment, in AR, despite the tremendous success, I might add, on the mobile side, which we'll get into, all of the attention is always on when are we going to start to wear glasses? Is this the year that we're going
to? And what will the glasses be? Monocular, not monocular, pass through, or spectacles, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting how you broke that down in the article. So maybe you just want to dive in a little bit there.
Sure. I mean, I've been talking a lot about how there's a myriad of, I call it connected eyewear, because some of the eyewear is smarter than others. And so I think Amy already, labeled a number of different types of devices. You have monocular heads-up displays, binocular heads-up displays. You have AR see-through optical glasses. You have AR video pass-through head-mounted displays. So I think that this year will continue to be a year where we see all of these types of devices at play, whether that's in the enterprise or the consumer space. So there's not just one AR head-worn device that will be either available to consumers or to you at work. And they all do different things. So some just show video, some show notifications, some actually do AR, but you can't do AR outside too well. And then others are just like kind of locked to your living room. And that's kind of where I wanted to start our discussion, is really on this PC moment for AR head-worn. It's a really exciting year in that we are already seeing mixed reality devices come together for the consumer market. So we have already MetaQuest Pro and MetaQuest 2 with pass-through, MetaQuest Pro with color pass-through, which is now a virtual reality device that can do augmented reality because of the ability for it to do so via video pass-through capabilities. HTC announced a device, which is really exciting. Lynx, which is a startup. Oh, awesome. Is that the Pro? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's, yeah. I've got to put that on as an accessory while we talk. Yeah, see, exactly. Love it. Poster for mixed reality. So we're going to hear a lot of talk about mixed reality. Why do I call it the PC moment? Well, I call it the PC moment because these devices are not meant to go outside. They are devices that are, for the most part, locked to a room in your house, and so like your living room, for example, or an office, just like a PC. They come along
like a desktop.
Yeah, like exactly. Like my first Tandy, and I had a Tandy, and my dad brought a Tandy home. And when my dad brought the Tandy home, he used it for Word or the equivalent of words.
Typing tutor.
Exactly. Typing tutor. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yes. He did use typing tutor or spreadsheets. And then I used it for AliCat, which was like a game, and so this is another kind of thing that I think is going to happen with these devices. You're going to have a mixture of productivity capabilities that will resonate with some, and then you'll have gaming and entertainment and fitness that will resonate to others. And these devices, they're good enough, but they have some ways to go. They're still like relatively large. They're expensive, or they will be expensive, at least to start for many. And those that can afford it, you'll see one per household. So it really does feel like that PC moment for AR head-worn device, but it's a really exciting time because these are devices that are already available or will be available from a variety of different players, many rumored. Yesterday we saw, Samsung announced that they have plans with Google and Qualcomm on mixed reality. We already have TCL announced that they are going to get into this. HTC, of course, going to be shipping soon. So we're seeing big players really put focus on this. And this is really important because this means that developers will be able to create content for AR head-worn devices that will be on the heads of users, and it'll be with a device that will not just be sold for AR, it will be sold for AR and VR. And so it really is piggybacking off of VR adoption and the VR adoption curve. So we're getting a head start. We don't have to start from scratch with AR head-worn.
I really think it'll benefit the VR adoption as well. My experience with using, for example, Shapes XR, it's a creation tool, kind of like Figma, but for 3D content creation. Using that in VR and using it in a pass-through situation, the pass-through situation is vastly more comfortable for whatever, if you don't need to be fully immersed, having the pass-through is way more appealing and way more comfortable. And I think that comfort is really going to help adoption.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think what will also happen is, we're going to see this unification of AR, VR, which, luckily we have a term for that, XR. And I think that this is going to be really important. I wrote that I really do believe this is going to re-energize the space for investors and developers. Why? Because for many, the opportunity has either been VR or either been AR, but just like metaverse, it's really two sides of the same coin. And mixed reality devices are the device that will unify this, bring it together, and this will allow developers and investors to size the overall opportunity and not just one fragment of it. And so I find that also really exciting, in addition to the fact that, just like you pointed out with Shapes XR, like that toggle between the two is going to allow developers to really explore, why simulation versus why augmentation. And I think that's going to be really exciting for developers and for users, and really allow for one piece of content, as you mentioned, to really showcase value in different reality situations and scenarios.
Yeah, and just thinking about creating in 3 dimensions versus you're creating for VR or for AR, which I think is also kind of useful and will help all of those that content creation.
100%. But as much as I'm excited about smart glasses and that, I fully expect, again, that outside of the house, we're going to see some more connected eyewear, audio glasses, video glasses, the return of Google Glass for consumers, meaning
that was a surprise for me.
The smartwatch moment. I was a Google Glass explorer for a while. I really dug it. It didn't take hold. It was too early. I still love the look of it, but I think I was, I love those things. But they're getting much more fashionable. We've seen Vuzix Ultralight, for example, at CES. They look almost exactly like a pair of glasses. North, before they got bought by by Google, they were also extremely fashionable. So, bringing notifications up to your face, especially, with some of the advancements that we've seen on the smartphone with the different focus profiles, for example, I could see that happening. And why that's important is because there will be a journey that we need to take folks on to get them really acclimated to putting technology on their face on a regular basis. The mixed reality device is dedicated. It's for, I'm going to go and, go into my remote working, AR VR meeting app, or I'm going to play it.
Real presence and immersion.
100%. But then when you're asking somebody to wear a pair of glasses out like they are a smartwatch day in and day out, I think it's going to take a while. Speaking of me being a Google Glass explorer, one thing I really learned very quickly is that the face is a very sensitive place for people. They are okay with wearing tech on other places. I used to wear a little bow tie that was a camera for a while, and people were okay with that. Our watch has become commonplace. We hold things in our hands, but putting something on your face it's a lot. And so I think we need to take folks on a journey, and these early, everyday, connected eyewear opportunities are going to be important to help really allow for people to acclimate and get ready. In the meantime, the mixed reality devices show the value of AR, and then I think they'll come to a convergent point where the mainstream is ready to wear something all the time. They've seen the value through mixed reality. The technology is caught up, and then that holy grail device that we've been talking about will have its moment.
Eventually. And in the meantime, the phones that we have are getting, even stronger and having more features. And so there's at least that, right?
100%. And I can't stress enough that as much as there will be a lot of activity on the head-worn side, the opportunity to reach consumers en masse is still with the smartphone. And I say it every year. It's the one trend that's in there. And that's because I'm very passionate about reminding people that AR is already here today, and it's happening in mobile AR, reaching, billions of people. And the smartphone, every flagship phone has a better camera, has a better, display, has better battery life, has better sensor fusion. And so 100% it's getting better. But it's also, becoming a very innovative place for displays. We have foldable and flip phones, which Samsung has, gone on record to say has been quite successful, especially in the enterprise. And then we're starting to see these rollable phones as well. They are a little bit still in the concept phase, it seems. But why is this important? Well, if you've ever tried augmented reality on an iPad Pro, that it's a field of view thing. And so the larger the screen side, the larger the real estate to experience AR, and then the more magical and immersive it is. And so I suspect that this innovative display aspect of the evolution of a smartphone that for the most part has become quite iterative because we've reached that point, is going to play a major role in augmented reality as well. So keep an eye on foldables and roldables. They're not just fads.
All right.
And they're fun to say.
That one I'm surprised, but I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of a trend that I'm surprised hasn't taken on as quickly, I think AR use in books I'm surprised that hasn't become more of a thing, because it just seems so easy. And now that we're used to QR codes with menus, even that I think you could augment books. So I would think so much easier, and it would be so cool. I got one actually the other day from it's a children's book, and I'm not sure if it's launched yet. It's like Sherman in Sedona or something like this, but it was really great, and it was just this another way to interact with something flat, but in a dimensional way with a phone. I thought it was really appealing.
Yeah, I actually just reposted a really fantastic concept from Cody Char on bringing to life DVDs with augmented reality. And so you kind of open up the DVD and you're able to watch clips. And I've always loved this use of augmented reality to give everyday objects new meaning and new life. And certainly you can do that today, especially with image targets, like you're talking about with book covers and books. And so I think anytime that you see something in your life that you've been looking at for years, and then all of a sudden you see it from a new perspective, that's the definition of magic. And that's what
that'll grow. Is that a trend for this year, where we're using physical things, augmenting physical things?
I think so. I mean, we've already seen it, but I think we'll continue to see it even more. Certainly the anchoring of augmented reality to objects is really important. You know, I just kind of describe this as mobile AR growing up and entering its third generation. So the first generation, at least for me, and I consider myself still a baby in the industry, because it's been much longer than 2009 when I started eyeing it. But in 2009, you got to picture it. It was LaMeyer, where, you know, I was using my feature phone or a Yelp monocle, and then it was showing me that like Starbucks was over here, but it was like, walk through your wall and you will get through Starbucks kind of thing. Or, you know, we had Robert Downey Jr. on the cover of Esquire with a huge, you know, image or augmented reality marker, not even an image a target. And so, you know, arguably AR was there, but it just was not ready. But you started to see the promise of augmented reality. It truly was more like an overlay. You know, the AR today, which I call 2.0, it's more rooted in the ground, on the surface, on a vertical surface or a horizontal surface, certainly on our face, for example. But it really, augmented reality is it could be anywhere. It could be any place, any face, anything. And I think where we're going to be moving in this third generation of mobile AR is in the specificity that AR exists in this place, or on this face, or on this thing. And that's what's going to make augmented reality feel really special, because it will give it this like physicality to the digital, almost like the scarcity, where you can only experience AR there at this time, or on this thing, or it will respond differently on your face versus my face. And I think that this is really going to allow mobile AR to deliver on its promise of blurring the physical and the digital. So a lot more things being augmented, places and things included, and it feeling much more real and much more personal and much more valuable and special is, I think, where we're going to be headed on mobile, and certainly on headsets as well, you know?
So if that's the case, is the browser still going to be a strong mechanism for that, or are we going to see something else pop up?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you know, I'm going to speak from a very biased perspective here, leading product on a web-based augmented reality platform. But, you know, I think we've seen over the years that the web has become a very powerful place for augmented reality. And we've also seen, especially on mobile, that it's important for social, native app, and web to all be at play in order to provide a real great opportunity for developers, including, you know, indie developers, brands, and organization developers. And so I definitely am very bullish on the web, especially because the web can really allow for developers to be on multiple devices, It's very responsive in that way. And it also gives the developers freedom and flexibility to really choose their own destiny with their content. And also the web is really known by people. Like we live on the web. We're using the web right now. And so I'm a big believer that to get to the future, you need to just take these baby steps with the existing technology that we already have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if we think back to internet days, that's the case as well, right? We all started with what we could find on the web, and then ultimately it shifted to apps. But apps are, you have to build for iOS and other operating systems, so that complicates it. And also, I feel like with an app, there has to be more functionality than just viewing something, right? So, yeah, for what we're doing today, I'm fully a fan of web-based content and not having to download an app that doesn't give you more functionality than you already have on the web.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that the web is also having its own moment, just like full stop. Like we're definitely seeing how much the web has evolved, not just in AR, but just in how it's playing a major role within this vision of the metaverse, within the Web3 space, and the changes with identity and the 3D rendering frameworks that are now so powerful that are changing the makeup of content. And so I think we're realizing how powerful the web has become as we move outside of the information age into more of an experience age, and say, wow, like the web is ready for experiences, as much as native apps and native and web and social all have their pros and cons and reasons to develop for. And I don't see those three pockets within the augmented reality space going away anytime soon. And in fact, they play in concert with one another in order to really make this space the way it is. On the consumer side, like since we're speaking about applications, what are some of the consumer solutions that are getting you really excited about, or just like verticals or industries that you're going to see a lot of activity in from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, me, I'm always really interested in what's happening with the music space and how that's going to be impacted. It was interesting to see already this year Wave to go back to VR from having just an app-based experience. So that was a little bit exciting to see them branch into that more immersive again, but good turnout and on that concert, and still super really fun. That was with Calvin Harris. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the music space. I think there's a lot of AI based opportunities there as well. How about you?
I love the music space. For me, my mind goes back to that thinking that locations are going to be enriched with augmented reality, and just getting really excited about music festivals and concerts, which are already augmenting themselves with special effects, but can take it to the next level with mobile devices and eventually glasses, but mobile today. And so, I think
I saw that announcement of Coachella doing more, right? Their theme is Mirage this year, and doing more with their AR portals, and that'll be interesting. Looking forward to seeing that.
I didn't catch that. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's just like a match made in heaven for augmented reality. And in addition to the continued use of what sometimes is called broadcast ARs for live events, on television. I know Coachella did that last year, I think with Flume, where you watched on YouTube and there was like butterflies. I can't remember exactly. Maybe you remember that were happening in the background. And so whether it's sports or, award shows or concerts and festivals, I think we're going to continue to see augmented reality, whether it's like real-time CGI, which is broadcast AR, or real augmented reality via your phone. And that's just going to take everything to the next level, But I think also like another area that we're going to see a lot of activity, speaking of entertainment, is in television. Disney last year launched a companion app that brought the television show, and for the life of me, I can't remember what television show it was, but it was with Brie Larson. It may have been a movie actually, but it brought a lot of the scenery out from the screen the television screen using your mobile phone. One of the examples I remember seeing was like a river or like a waterfall coming out of your TV by looking at your TV through your phone. And so I fully expect that there will be this play between the screens that we are using today and especially head-worn devices, I think makes a little bit more sense, but still phones, because phones are in everyone's hands. And it kind of goes back to your book idea, right? Where you're taking something that we already have in our house that's available to us, that we watch all the time. And how can we take that to the next level? And if you've been watching what Snapchat's been doing with a lot of their filters and kind of seeing what's happening on social media, there's this trend to watch or rewatch old television shows with a Snapchat filter on that, makes the characters look like they're crying or otherwise, and it changes the meaning of it. And so it's almost like remixing these shows, augmented reality, to really encourage repeat viewability and asking you to come back to a show that you've already watched time and time again to be able to experiencing it in a brand new way, or like bring it out of the TV so you can go deeper into the story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you feel about that, but that's kind of what's on my mind on the TV space,
That is fascinating. I still have a hard time thinking about like holding a phone up to a screen for a long period of time. For me, a book is a little bit more because it's short. You like hold up the phone and then look at it and then put it down. But definitely I hear you as we get more from a wearable perspective. Retail too. I can't remember if you talked about retail in the piece, but I do think that that's an area that's going to continue to grow. We saw a lot of growth last year, but as we continue to be in somewhat of a down market, there's still some marketing dollars there that I think will continue. They're looking for new and different ways to connect with consumers, and so I think we'll still see growth in that space as well.
Yeah, I mean, retail e-commerce sales are supposed to total over $6 trillion, making up 22% of total retail sales. And so e-commerce has become like a staple within the retail industry. And some of the challenges with e-commerce is that you can't try anything. Like, it's not like walking into a store. You have infinite inventory, and actually you could find things maybe easier because of searching and algorithms. But that's where augmented reality really comes into play with virtual tryout and virtual try on. This is not something that's new, but we're seeing even more, major brands adopt. Last year was Amazon, big rollout, Walmart, H&M, Society6, the list goes on. So I think we're going to continue to see retailers adopt augmented reality as a staple to their e-commerce sites to really bring that physicality to e-commerce sites.
Yeah, and there's still so much further to go from a technology perspective as well, right? Like easier to try on sunglasses or maybe even lipstick than it is to try on clothes. Easier to see a couch or a painting in your space versus even a toaster sometimes is floaty and not quite right the size. So yeah, I would love to see the technology there improve. Yeah,
I think I 100% agree. And I think the engineers are constantly working at improving computer vision algorithms and optimizing them for the different platforms. But I think beyond just e-commerce, the opportunities also with brick and mortar, now that we're starting to return back to a time where we prioritize going outside more and feeling more comfortable to do so. Before the pandemic, if you recall, there was disruption happening in the brick and mortar space already, where stores were trying to reimagine themselves as experience centers to try to find new ways to convince people to get into the store, spend time in the store, because e-commerce is such a convenient option. With the pandemic, it accelerated e-commerce, and I think really accelerated the need for these experience centers. And augmented reality can be a very, arguably sustainable and cheaper way to create an infinite amount of experiences within a location, and essentially transforming that location into an experiential destination. So I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities seized, both within e-commerce, especially as you noted, the technologies continue to improve, and on the brick and mortar side, where especially luxury brands, are really eager to create over-the-top experiences that you have to go to that location to try, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I know we only have 10 minutes left. And so I want to, first of all, see, are there any trends that you wanted to cover that we haven't covered, but also open it up to the audience and, let us know what trends you're seeing. Would love to hear from the audience as well, from the community as well.
Yeah, I would love. I've already written down my trends, so people can return back at any time on my LinkedIn. Happy to keep talking, but I would love to hear more from the AWE community. Like, what's on your mind? What trends are you seeing that we haven't talked about? Or do you have any questions? So I think we can use the Q&A functionality.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't seeing it before, but now I can see the chat, so that's good.
I'm back. I wrote down a few questions just because they've been flying through the chat here, and I wanted to make sure that we got a few in with the last few minutes we've got. So we got a question from Nicole, and she was just asking, I know you guys touched on it, but maybe you could go just a little bit deeper on how do you see the intersection of XR and Web3 playing out, and then where are there opportunities for developers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Hi, Nicole. Okay, so I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in XR and Web3, and certainly going back to that vision of the metaverse, these are two main ingredients that come together to really usher that metaverse in. Web3 in particular plays a major role in identity and authentication, and so I think we're going to continue to see new ways in which people can have presence within a virtual experience and leverage Web3 to be able to allow for that experience to know who they are, and then therefore within a very Web3 setting, the user has a lot more control over what data that experience can have access to. As well, like XR and the metaverse just in general need a thriving economy in order to survive, and Web3 really provides that economy where through it can be tokenization. There's a lot of contribution that users can do in order to help world build and create virtual worlds and virtual experiences, and therefore not only help contribute to the creation of it, but also have tokens or be able to monetize in some way that they can put that money back into XR. And then I think the third thing that I'm seeing is also just in the continued evolution of NFTs, which certainly aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I think we're going to see NFTs go through a chill, just like the metaverse, where the hype starts to die down. I arguably said they're going to seem a lot more boring, which somebody in the comments rightfully said that was a little bit extreme. They're not going to be that boring, but I think just compared to where they were, it's going to seem boring. And what I meant by that is that they're going to just be much more productive. They're going to be really value focused, and in particular, brands are going to be starting to harness them as the new loyalty program. And so you're going to see NFTs be really focused on the community aspect, and that kind of like proof of aspect that they're really well known for, rather than like the scarcity and the flurry around like the crypto grab.
Right. More accessible by more people. Yeah. Which is a trend I think most of us are looking forward to. Yeah, and then the only thing I'd add to that is, the concept of like where will the blockchain integrate with the metaverse, right? And you're seeing companies like Lamina One really focused on content creators and building this layer one space for virtual worlds to be on top of. I think they're in early days. The testnet is just out now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some growth in that area over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just switching gears just a little bit, I know there's a couple of questions jumping in here on the Apple, the Apple rumors, but I think maybe I'm going to just switch it up just a little bit, because there's also some questions on the price point piece of it. So I think two questions. video pass-through and the mixed reality device, what are some of the use cases you can see actually aligning with the consumer space, not just the enterprise space? And where do you think that price point is going to be that is more or less the sweet spot for greater adoption on the consumer side?
That's a few questions. Amy, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with price point, because it's one of the things I've thought about a lot, and you know, the concept of where is that tipping point for mass adoption, and I've talked about it with VR headsets. I think it's this triumvirate, like cost, comfort, and content. When is it usable? The content is there that makes you want to use it, and the cost is at the right point. I think it's got to be. I think it's got to be less than a phone. I think it's got to be less than a phone for it to really be mass adoption, right? Will people buy it for more than that? Sure, but and will enterprises? Yes, right? Well, you know, everyone's rejiggering their budget at the moment, but once that settles in, but I think for mass consumers, it's got to be less than a phone, because everyone needs a phone, and they'll prioritize that first. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think I definitely think price point is really important, but price point is like one kind of dynamic. The content needs to be there. Like the value needs to be represented, and then depending on how much value, that will also dictate the price. And so, you know, like PlayStation is what, like $6.99 or something. So like PlayStation 5. And so I think already if a lot of the use case is going to be in gaming for the mainstream, then looking at like the price point of higher end gaming devices, 600, 700, maybe even 800, you know, could be where we may need to get at to get more people on board. Of course, it's still not a very accessible device, right? So like this is, but it's going to make it a little bit easier for more people to have it under the tree. It certainly feels as like we're getting the first like kind of wave of devices out at a higher price point, potentially maybe to start seeding that content that needs to be there. The developers need to have access to these devices in order to start to create applications. When those applications are there, then they're going to help alongside, you know, bringing that bomb down to get to that tipping point that we need. But I think it's like value and price will work in tandem. And then in terms of use cases, I think, you know, gaming, fitness, entertainment, and productivity are the ones that we're already seeing within the VR space. I would suspect that they would be the same in the AR space. Being able to like see your yoga instructor in your space while seeing your mat, for example, would be like the ideal. So I think we're going to see those as like common categories of application development.
Amazing. Well, I know we're at time, and I know want to be conscious of all of your time. Any final thoughts? Anything else? Just want to add before we break away?
I mean, I would just like to encourage everybody, even though there's been some fluctuations in this space. You know, I think both Tom and I are still seeing that there are a lot of trends to follow. There are a lot of shifts that mean that there's going to be growth in this space. So I'm still really excited about what we're going to see over the course of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a big year for XR. I know many of you on the call have been in this space for many years. You know, I said like the ground is very fertile, and it's the time for XR to start to see some flowers bloom. And so keep at it, keep innovating. Thank you for your service. And this will be an exciting year for all of us and for the world at large to see what XR has for us and how it's going to impact humanity. And thanks, Patrick and team, for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And thank you both again for coming out. I hope this is one of many years, and next year all of your predictions have come true, and we're all living in a better world for it. If anybody wants to get in touch, where can they reach you?
Amy?
I'm Amy at wxrfund.com. I'll put it in the chat.
And you can find me best on LinkedIn, just under my name, Tom Emrich.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, thanks again. Really appreciate the time and everything. Anybody out there who liked the show, has some thoughts, took some screenshots, put them on social, hashtag AWE Nite SF. And hopefully next time we come around, we're at 5,000 and I can stop being the broken record on getting us there, because one of these days we will be, and it's going to be soon. So
Love it.
all right. Well, thanks again, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.